So, I woke up this morning and I reflected on the video that I made for YouTube yesterday, and I noticed something. Yesterday was Friday. Whenever Fridays happen, I usually do Friday Flow. I did not do Friday Flow yesterday. So, I'm going to do somewhat of a Friday Flow today without officially labeling it as Friday Flow. I'm just going to talk about, what's been kind of going on, right? I've been watching videos from Bob Proctor and Jim Rohn, two very influential people, I would argue to be in very similar categories, in the categories of personal growth as well as spiritual growth. But I think that it was Jim Rohn that was talking about working hard. However, in regards specifically to personal growth, personal and spiritual growth, he was like, if you work hard on your job, you can make a lot of money, right? If you work hard on yourself, you can make a fortune, right? And this is something that I've found to be, what's the word to use for it? The more that I work on myself, the more I see myself get better as a person, right? It's a matter of refinement. It's a process and a journey of refinement of the self, right? And so when I hear, I'm pretty sure that it was Jim Rohn talk about it. I'm pretty sure he was a millionaire, multimillionaire, maybe even billionaire, I'm not sure, but he was basically talking about how, if you work really hard on yourself, I mean, it makes sense. You're going to improve as a person. Every area of your life is going to get better, right? And what I've noticed on my own journey is that the more I work on myself, it's challenging, of course. Or is it? Another belief. In some experiences, I've noticed that it's challenging to work on myself. There's kind of this balance between fucking exhaustion and let's do this. And I have found myself sometimes exhausted. However, when I find myself exhausted, there's probably, what's actually going on is that I'm trying to force things outside of myself. I spent my entire life before this era forcing things outside of myself. This is probably something that I talked about in yesterday's video. And so I would argue that a really great example of working really hard on yourself is actually bringing all of your focus, awareness, and energy back to yourself and into your body, and stop trying to push, move, force, and manipulate things externally. What I've noticed is that my life changes the most when I change. I have tried to change things and people outside of me. I have. I absolutely have. It's a disaster. It's not worth it. Because usually when you see that something outside of you, or you feel that something outside of you has to change, it's really just you. And this is what I've noticed throughout my life. Not throughout my life. More recently in my life. Probably in the past, specifically 5 to 7 years. And I just look at what it is that Jim talks about here, and if you put more work into self-refinement, you're going to get specific results. You are. And this is what I've learned. Because, I'm actually at the point right now where, and I believe that it took necessary previous steps of self-awareness to get to this point, right? I would argue to be one of the most important things that a person can do is really look at their personality, right? Because a person's personality, which is structured in how they think, how they feel, and how they act, that creates a person's personal reality, right? Now, let me go even further with this because it's important. We are all energy, right? Oftentimes, when we focus less on energy and more on matter, we become less energy and more matter, right? And that's when we start to try to move and push and force and manipulate and control things outside of us, right? But then when we really realize, when we see it for what it is and understand that reality is just a mirror for how we feel, right? Who we are being. It's a matter of who we are being. Then we realize that to get what we want, it's not about forcing and manipulating outside of us. It's about shifting our energy inside of us. And so, in response to Jim Rohn, I agree. I do. And not only that, but it's also interesting because it's like, well, if you really start to look at the self, you might conclude that since reality is a mirror for who we are being and how we are and how we feel, right? Since reality is a mirror for that, right? It's not that it forces us to look at ourselves, but I would argue that it guides us to look at ourselves. And the act of looking at ourselves in response to Jim Rohn's argument of you can work hard and make a lot of money, work hard at your job and make a lot of money, or you could work hard on yourself and make a fortune, right? So reality being a mirror really guides us back to ourselves. It's like you look out and it's like, oh, I don't have to go out there. I just have to shift this. Hats off to that. Now, the interesting thing here, especially that I've noticed in my own life, I've gotten very used to, I appreciated that, I've gotten very used to the exhaustion of feeling like I need to be responsible for everything and everyone else out there and control things and people. I have. It's kind of difficult for me to admit, but it's just the reality of things. Now, what does that say about me bringing all of my focus, awareness, and energy back to myself and into my body and not worrying about the external and realizing that if I just shift my energy, that shifts and changes? That challenges me because it goes against the narrative that I learned, that I need to go outside of myself to feel better. Don't, though. Don't at all. So, and it might be the hardest work out there, is really looking at the self. Is it challenging to look at the self? In my experiences, it can be. It has been. But that initial contact, like you might look at it from afar, right? And you might be like, right? You might do that. But then when you get closer, you might be like, oh, hey, not so bad. Not as bad as I thought, right? And then everything changes. And then you can start to walk through your front door and be like, oh, hey, memories. What's up? Oh, hey, walls. What's up? I remember when I put you there. And I don't personally believe, well, gotta be careful with this. Is it challenging? Is it hard to change as a person? There are habits that I've built over the years that have definitely limited me, and I'm working to clear those habits up and put in place new ones that really transform my life. What I have noticed is this, and this is why I would argue it to be difficult or challenging or hard to change the self, to change one's life. And I've always wondered why it's been this way, but I'll end off with this because it's important. There is a specific level of pain that comes with changing the self, at least in my own experiences in life. When I push and push and push myself, or I just let go and allow, of course, because it's not always about pushing and pushing and pushing and forcing and controlling. That's the old model, right? When I just allow, right, I might allow something to surface, right? There's pain there. That pain is difficult, challenging, hard to sit with. It is, yeah. So what I've been doing is just kind of like understanding that it's just pain, because it is. It can come off as very intimidating, but it's just pain. The pursuit of self-actualization, of self-refinement, that process, that journey, it's worth it. It's highly rewarding.